Hey, what's up? If you're watching, I'm having incredible technical difficulties, and my children are being demons. Anyway, I don't have a light right now, so that kind of sucks, but we will make do, and I'm sorry for the lack of stuff making me not look like I'm in a closet, which I am in a closet. So yeah, so like, give me just a second to kind of get my bearings on some of this stuff. And if you wouldn't mind kind of hitting the chat, that'd be great. So I know that we are here. We got a couple things that I was already a little not super sure about demonstrating today, but I think they'll be fun, and you can help me out with the parts that don't work yet. So let's see. Let's hide that. Let's go back into Zen mode real quick. Um, Let me know if you can't hear me very well or if you can't see anything very well. Um, and we'll be off to the races. Um, get this bigger. Okay. Cool. I think we have everything we need. Welcome to this kind of like second live stream this week. Again, I'm very sorry for kind of all the technical difficulties that I'm having right now, but hopefully we can still cover a lot of content for you. Now, the thing I want to just do a recap of the things that we covered last time because I think that that's going to be super important. Just to kind of know what we already covered and kind of like how we're expanding on that just a little bit. So, what we did yesterday was we made an avatar and we made avatar sizes, or Tuesday, sorry. And I'm going to jump into those files real quick. Now, you can forget this comment right now. That is what we're going to be working on today. We're using an avatar selector, and we just created all of these custom properties for properties that we might want to change inline. So we have an avatar border color. It has a default of fuchsia, and we use var to actually like calculate that value dynamically. And so we have a lot of that's basically it. That's kind of the basics of this. I had mentioned that I tend to like to do like a double dash is going to be for every custom property. So I name the like module or component, if you will, and then I'll use another double dash and then the actual property that I want to change. Now, sometimes I'm going to have things that adjust multiple properties, and I'll have kind of my own like API for that. So this is avatar size, and that's going to control both values for height and width, because all of our avatars are going to be in this 1x1 orientation. So that is that's kind of the thinking behind that. And then for things that I don't want to change, I just leave those you know unvariabilized. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't override these properties with inline styles or like a higher specificity class selector. So they're still able to be changed, but I think for me, it kind of signifies like this is something that like maybe we shouldn't change. So like this border radius should pretty much always be 50%. If it's not, well, then maybe we should come up with some kind of other construct for this thing. And then border box, that just makes sure that no matter what size this is, as we apply borders, that's going to constrain the content area inside of the absolute height. And then to set those, you can set these on a node, or you can set them all the way at the root, where you set like the default of this. Now, something that's super cool is that if you're doing layouts, you could have just a certain area of your layout have all of its avatars be a certain size, instead of having to define it on every single element. I'm sure that many times you've kind of like been using Bootstrap, and it's like if you want to have 5 buttons per se that are all small, you have to put button small on all of them. Well, in this case, you could just put a wrapping element that says dash dash button dash dash size small, and all of them, it's going to cascade into all of those. So really cool stuff here, how you can like cascade those in based on a layout. And then we had gone a little bit further, and I had just demonstrated if I were to like systematize this, make some additional selectors for like, small, medium, large on avatars, which we demonstrated here, that I would just use the custom properties and kind of define the values that I need. And then we kind of went a little bit further and showed how, this could be just changing size, or it could be making a whole different type of avatar. But it's very flexible, which is really neat. So I'm going to close these up, and we're going to talk about like some other things that you can do. Some of these examples are fleshed out, and some of them not so much so. So the first thing that I want to show you is how to work with color values. So right now we have this avatar border color, and we can change that. So if I changed this right on this element to brown, well, this first one becomes brown. Let's see, let me take the sizing off of this so we can see that a little bit better. And let me maybe change this to green so it contrasts against that, that pink one a little bit more. I'm also gonna say border, avatar border width is gonna be, let's make this bigger. Let's make it 8 pixels. If I got that custom property right. Border width, doesn't look like I did. Border width, oh, we don't have that. Okay, cool. So I can just, we're not exposing it at the moment. I could add it, but I don't necessarily need to. This is just a one-off, so we'll just say border width and we get that same effect. Cool. So something I want to talk about is kind of like relative colors and like how you might, like tactics for maybe how you would achieve that in with custom properties. Now, a lot, many times you'll ask, like, is this something that you use all the time? This isn't something that I would use all the time. I think it's better to have actual color values. However, there are those cases where you just want to like kind of change it a little bit, and this is a really cool way to do that. So, as you're kind of fleshing out your system and defining it and figuring it out, you can do something like this to actually get there. Let me make sure I'm not missing any comments real quick. So Alex asks, why do you suppose this isn't a more common pattern for creating full-blown CSS custom property based component libraries? In other words, why isn't there a CSS properties bootstrap yet? That's a really good question. I think I think it's probably twofold. Alex, I think it's like one. Let's see. I think the first part of it is that a lot of people need Internet Explorer support and kind of rule out custom properties right off the bat. Now, I don't know if that's just because like PostCSS isn't as popular a project as Babel, but it does exactly what Babel would do in this situation, where it's going to polyfill it in a way that kind of supports the old browser with a static value at compile time, but then also leaves you open to dynamic values for modern browsers. And so I think maybe people miss that is a thing. I think also people just assume now that CSS is bad, and I think that the popularity of CSS in JS has allowed people to again kind of turn their mind off to the progress of CSS. I think that we see this a lot too with Grid. I mean, CSS Grid is an amazing tool, and they are less polyfillable. There's and whatnot, but there's plenty of applications that don't actually need access or don't need to support IE11 and still don't use CSS Grid, even though it's it's just a far superior way to lay out pages on the web. So I don't know. I think a lot of it is just like culture. I think it's like way more popular for people to do stuff in JavaScript. I think there's not sorry, as TypeScript becomes more popular, there's not a like typed CSS. I know that's kind of like a big complaint. However, kind of as I showed on Tuesday, if you use TypeScript for your authoring language of your code, you can integrate it in such a way that it uses the custom properties. So I don't know. I think it's just really just like not cool to like be into CSS for the most part. That's my read on it. And so that's why I wanted to do some of this stuff. I hope that over the next like I'm hoping that kind of after covering the basics, next week and the weeks after, I'll stream some actually kind of like making this like what would it look like to libraryize this, make this into kind of a more bootstrappy type of thing. Again, we're using that for a number of components at my work, but I think it would be fun to get some more kind of community feedback into that. So I hope that answers your question. I know that was kind of like a long one, but there's like a lot of moving pieces. It took so long for people to get into to not hate CSS and JS, and now nobody wants to let go of it, even though a lot of this stuff is, maybe better in some ways. So I wanted to just show something that is really cool. So let's say we wanted to also pass in like an HSL value. Now we could do that, but I want to do something a little bit different. So actually, let me just demonstrate that the border color can already be an HSL. And that stands for hue saturation lightness. So 0%, 0% is going to be black. If we do this lightness 100%, that's going to be white, and then everything in between. So we can still do that. We can pass in HSL directly, but we can also, I want to try to pass in like an HSL value, and you'll see why in a second, because this is where it gets kind of fun down here. I'm going to hide that just so you can't cheat. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass that in. It's not going to work. The one we're working on right here is this one. And so we have to make a little bit of an adjustment to our code. So here we have our border color and we're defaulting it to fuchsia. We can do this a number of ways, but the way that I'm going to do it is I'm just going to specify that like, specify a default up here. And actually I'll type it just so we can see it. Avatar border color is going to be HSL var HSL. Did I get that right? Yes. Missing semicolon. That's why it hates me. Okay, cool. So now what we're doing is we're actually calling HSL on our value. So we can just pass in the value. And something that's cool about, something that I really like about custom properties is that these don't have to be, what is it? What you store in a custom property doesn't have to be in itself valid CSS, right? So this is not like valid CSS. We need to have the, HSL function around this in order for CSS to actually know what to do with that. However, custom properties don't require that the value stored in them is valid CSS, except for that, like whatever you do with it is valid. So here we can pass in this valid, dismiss, I don't know, it's pissed at my Vim plugin, I guess. And so what we can do here is we can call the function and then give it the value, which is really nifty. So even though this value by itself isn't like valid on its own, we can use it as a value to this function. Super cool. Now, we can then take that a step further and we can say, okay, so what is HSL, right? It's hue, saturation, and lightness. Well, what if we want to change, hey Byron, what's up? Welcome back. What if we want to change just a single part of that? So we'll say, let's make part parts of this dynamic now, and we'll do the whole thing later. So we'll say we want the var of, we'll do a variable L for lightness, and we'll set that to 0% by default. Okay, so let's go in here now, and let's go to this last one. Let's say style, oops, dash dash L. We're gonna make the lightness, was it 50%? Okay, so we see now on this last one, the lightness is 50%. We didn't change all of the HSL function, we just changed the lightness. Now we can do this for all these things. So let's change this. So let's change the hue now. Let's make the hue, I don't know, 180. Or what's half of 255? 122? Something like that. No, 127? 128, rounded up. Cracking myself up. So let's change the hue. Let's add hue on here. So hue is the first one here. So that's going to be, we'll say var of hue. That defaults to 0, which would be black. I said hue, but that's actually going to be H. Did I do that right? Var of H defaults to 0. H 125. That should be something else. Oh, I think I need to change the saturation in tandem because right now we have 0 saturation. So let's do that. So let's say saturation is going to be, I don't know, 50%. Go into our avatar, var the default S. There we go. Okay, so now it's this kind of like purpley color. But it's super cool that we can go in here and just change, like tweak with specific values. Make this a much darker purple, 50%. Change it from purple to, I guess, what was our color we were going for before? 127 on that like radial wheel. So it's pretty cool that we can change all of these in line. And again, none of these values are independently like CSS valid values, but we're using them kind of at this, like, I don't know, usage time, compiled time, render time, I don't know. When they get used in such a way that they can be interpreted in CSS. So this is super cool. I think this is a super fun way to kind of like just manipulate colors. And it doesn't preclude you from the other ways of doing this. So if you write it the way that I have it here, we can still pass in a border color, let's see, blue, directly. We can pass in a full HSL value as well as the composite parts of HSL, which is really neat. Byron says, I'm always surprised by how full-featured CSS is. I got a bad taste in my mouth with CSS when I killed performance with what I thought was a pretty simple change. Yeah, so that actually brings up a really interesting point. I know something that we struggle with a lot in work is like as CSS grows, I haven't had problems with like in-browser performance, but we do have tons of problems with compile time performance, where teams have used a lot of Sass, and now it's kind of like having to like traverse this whole like graph of files to like just compile this one change. And I know for me, a lot of the work is just kind of like splitting that up into smaller chunks. You know, same way we do with JavaScript, right? Changing it to simpler chunks so that your build step can kind of safely ignore certain parts of that graph. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there's performance problems everywhere, right? Because I think one thing that I personally hate about CSS and JS stuff is that, at least in a lot of naively implemented apps, now a CSS or JS change can really impact, if you have like just like a single manifest for your JavaScript, it can mean that you have to rebuild your entire app just because you changed a color value. Obviously, there's ways around it there too, but these are some things that are just really annoying about, like, as your app grows, trying to scale it so like development and performance to users is constant. Yeah, compile time woes, real pain in the butt. So yeah, so that's kind of that's the first thing that I wanted to share today is just how like I guess composable. It's like CSS custom properties. It's like just turtles all the way down, whatever that meme is, right? You can just there are so many things that you can do when you kind of open your mind up to using custom properties to tweak some of these values. So that was the first thing, and then one of the things that is kind of absent from custom properties is a way to do media queries with custom properties. I'm going to include this file real quick, and you'll see what I mean. Now this is broken, and I'm not exactly sure what I did wrong. So you'll be able to see, you'll be able to help me figure this out. So you can't use like custom properties in this space. It just doesn't work, at least as far as I know. You can't do these things kind of like I don't think you can do. Oops. Vim gave up the ghost. I'm gonna try restarting this real quick. Oh no, it was just slow. You can't do that. So whatever. So there's this really fun technique that David K. Piano, if you know him, has been talking about, and he calls this, what is it? Prop and lock, which I think is just really funny, for kind of handling like media query type styles inside, using custom properties. And so what this does, let's see, does this one work? Yeah. Okay. What did I do wrong? Okay. Basically, what it's going to do is you're going to define all of the values that it could possibly be, right? So like, so we'll do var, the minimum breakpoint is pink, or pink by default. And we'll use these defaults to actually define the values that we want to use. And then in the media query, this is such a funny hack, but like in the media query, then we just kind of use this value and we pass in nothing. And which gives this, as far as I understand, gives this value priority in that thing because, like, yeah. Anyway, super odd, but that's how this little thing works. So we can specify our media queries. So it's like at min width of 0 pixels. I think this can just be 0. We want to use this. I don't know why it's not working, but it's probably just on me. So let's try something else. Let's do let's make this medium and large because I'm having trouble getting it small anyway. So we'll do like 4 and now it's working for some reason, and we'll do 480 and 720. Let's change that to small. So the medium one changed. I'm still having trouble with this pink one though, which is crazy. I'm not sure why. think. It's not order thing. Maybe we'll come back to that. In any case, you can, now that you know like kind of the name, you can like search Twitter and see David's examples for this. But this is a super fun little technique that you can use. And again, it just represents how custom properties don't need to be like valid values on their own. So one of the final things, and this is going to be kind of short today. I don't have like a lot of like cohesive kind of like lessons once I get like out of Avatar. So this is all kind of like me figuring out. Yeah, Byron, I think that's correct. Let's jump. I'm gonna move out of that, and then I'm gonna pull up the kind of Twitter example, and then we can kind of like dive into it because I'm obviously missing something. I did something wrong. So let's go to prefers color scheme. So I wanted to talk a little bit about theming here too, because this is something that I think CSS really shines in, and that's because the operating system has these keys. So prefers color value. Let's open up the docs for that actually. Or prefers color scheme, sorry. Prefers color scheme. And what we can do with prefers color scheme is actually kind of like hide or set a bunch of styles based on the user's operating system preference. And so we've always seen like kind of like that setting on a lot of sites where you can like toggle it on and off. But this actually integrates with the operating system. And this is my preference, honestly. Like if I have my phone or my computer set to dark mode, I just want you to match it. I don't want to have to like choose a setting in every single website that I visit to like, support dark mode. I think that's ridiculous. So this is the API for doing that in response to the system, which is super cool. So we'll just copy this and we'll build a super simple version of that. I've included this style sheet, so let's open that up. Okay, I'm just going to dump this stuff. And for now, we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're just going to change the root, some root colors. So we'll say if the media query prefers color scheme is dark, well, then we will change this background to be, we'll just keep it simple, change to black. Roots. Okay, so if I might be in full screen here, so I'll get out of that.
Daddy,
Yeah, kiddo.
is it okay if we have a little bit more time?
No, you guys need to find something else to do right now. I'll be done in like 15 minutes. Okay, so so what we gotta do next is so how do we integrate this, right? So we have this. I wanted to show you, if I go in here and I go to preferences here, I can go into this and I can change this to light mode. Just with that media query, it should respond. It's taking a second. So it's going to respond there. I can go back to dark mode. It's responsive, and this as well. So now one of the cool things about the media queries and doing it this way is I'm going to take out all of these styles because these are very like inliney type things, and this is going to require some level of kind of like system thinking. So what we're going to do is now say like, well, on white, we want to have some contrast for the borders of our avatars. So this will be, we can just define that across the board. So avatar border color, border color is, let's just say gray. Let's just use the named color values for now. Avatar, border color. Did I do that right? Light gray. If you see what I'm doing wrong, let me know. I'm always doing something wrong. First clear screen light. I think this may be because of the way I have my defaults set up. Oh, right. Yeah, I changed this. Border color is going to be default of HSL. Okay. Instead of changing that, I'm just going to give it HSL value. Curious why it was working up here before. It was indeed working. So we'll give this an HSL value of 0, 0%, 50%. I'm doing something else wrong. Oh, I'm not on the right color scheme. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but I did say I was going to struggle today. Change the avatar size in response to the theme and see what happens. Or the color mode. Size. Let's make it mega. And that's going to be on the light theme, which is what we're on right now. Okay, so we're getting there. It's connected. Why isn't it working? Okay, we're going to take this out. Weird. Okay. I don't know then. I just said I was going to show you what could be done. Didn't say I was going to be good at it. So let's change these values in response to the theme. Let's kind of just pick this up off the background a little bit at like maybe even 90, make it super slight. And then let's jump into our other theme, dark mode, and take this a little bit further back, do kind of a similar thing at 20. Cool. So one thing that's really fun about this is, a lot like, theme UI in CSS and JS, you'll be able to kind of like set these things, on a per theme basis, and you'll have these kind of like natural divisions of how you would do that. Now, I think one thing that's like worth noting, and this isn't really CSS Custom Properties specific, but it is important for styling, is that a lot of times, like, these aren't going to be like direct mappings. Like, you can't just say like, oh, it's going to be 10% off the background, because 10% off the background of black is like pretty indistinguishable in a way that 10% of the background of white is not. Like, so I've noticed this a lot, where you have to have like very, very specific things. And this is where kind of like language is going to come into play. So maybe you have a, on black grayscale. So you would have, gray, I don't know, like a lot of people do these like color values like gray 0, gray 25, gray 50, however you want to do that. 100. And these are kind of like designed to be relative of the theme, which is really interesting. Now, once you have these set up, so let's take this and say we want our 25 to be that kind of like just slightly off of the background type thing. We can place that in here, our store HSL value there. Let's just do this other value that we have here as well. We only have the 2. Now we can use these in other places, which is really nice. Color. Now I'm doing something wrong here in defining these. Gotta put those actually inside of a selector, not just in the media query. Doesn't work like that. Now we can kind of like make this dynamic. Oops. By saying var color gray 25. And then same thing here. Okay. Now I need to do the same thing with these as well. So on light, oops, light, those values are going to be different. It'll be white, and it's going to be 20% off white. Let's make that 15. Oh, sorry. Okay, so now, okay, so yeah, so that's where we're at. Today's a mess. Today's a mess. So now the cool thing about this is that we can now, if we have a system like this, we can actually integrate this into like the defaults for our component, right? So we have this avatar, and this is like a pretty generic one, but we could do like, let's make a, I'm just going to use like super verbose names here. Let's make a system avatar.css file. And this system avatar is going to be kind of one that is actually, it's still going to like wrap the bases here, but it's actually going to integrate into like our system, and that system being providing like theme colors to like all manner of UI. So let's take our avatar, and I think we're going to need that. Go over to system avatar. Okay, so we're going to do some stuff here where basically just the border color is now going to be system avatar border color is going to be like system integrated, right? And so this will be var of, what did we, let me close that. This color gray 25. Okay, and we can kill the rest of that. And then if everything is upright, which it may or may not be, we should be able to take those out. Okay, so now we have kind of like a systematized avatar um, that is going to like get that like global value from our like system file, and it's going to now like use that. So theoretically, now that we have like a systematized avatar extension, it should still do it. Now that's not really showing up super, you might not even be able to see it on stream, but let's change our value in our theme to be 20% on this one, 30%, 40%, however you want to change it. But then we'll be able to kind of like see that in action. Let's see. Let's see if there's any questions, and then I'm gonna need to go because my house is burning down. I'll be with you in like 5 minutes. Okay. Joel's enjoying seeing the struggle. I'm glad that I can entertain you today. uh, let's see. Byron, is there a precedence battle? I'm not totally sure what you mean. There is going to be, you know, in this case, you are going to want to like kind of, since we're using the same selector root on all of this stuff, you are going to want to kind of think about load order on this. Obviously, because these are media queries and we're defining the colors there, they're going to have a slightly higher precedence than just the kind of like root system avatar, because this is doesn't have that media query wrapper. So this is giving an additional level of specificity that's going to override it. It should kind of, even if I, as I move prefers color scheme, like that actual part of it where the theme files are set up, if I move it before or after, it shouldn't make a difference because the specificity is going to win out because of the media query, if that makes sense. Yeah, my house is not actually on fire, just my home is on fire, I should probably say. Anyway, I do hope that was useful in any way possible, even just to kind of show you some of the kind of oddities of CSS custom properties. I'm gonna do one last thing, just inspect that so you can kind of see the order of things here. So yeah, so this is the definition of the file, and then this is, let's see, what is it? These are our custom properties, and they're highlighted here. So these are the ones that are actually like getting taking precedence. Yeah. So anyway, fun stuff. I'm sorry that this was not as ready to go as the last one. I'm a little bit disappointed about that, and for all of the equipment failures I was experiencing today. I feel like Mercury's in retrograde or something, because like all day we've been having like Zoom problems and like whatever. It's been a interesting day. Anyway, hey, thanks for sticking around with me. Again, I hope this was at all helpful. I will post this into the comments if you wanted to kind of like take it further, play with it, kind of show me some of the things that you do with custom properties. I'd love to see it. And that's it. Have a great Thursday, Friday, and weekend. And hopefully I'll see you next week, and maybe we'll build a library together out of all this nonsense. I'll see you around.